Chapter 1134. But on the other side, Wolf felt that it was too difficult. Compared to the last time, it was as if they were completely annihilated this time. Especially since the red dots on his phone were decreasing. This meant that his comrades were decreasing. Wolf Fong leaned to the side, hiding very well. This wasn't strange since he was a member of the team. Moreover, he was Qin Mo's best sniper. But even so, without their captain's command, Wolf could only protect himself. He couldn't do anything. Regiment commander, we have captured the enemy captives. The informant came in and reported a number. The regiment commander tapped his fingers on the table. How many are left? 7, the informant replied. The informant continued. 2 of them have been located by our army, but the remaining 5 are particularly difficult to find. The strangest thing is that there are 2 of them that we haven't even discovered. We haven't intercepted them in the jungle. The regiment commander wasn't bothered. They can only protect themselves now. Our army will discover them the moment they make a move. It isn't strange that we didn't manage to capture them. They were just a bunch of new recruits. Since Qin Mo wasn't commanding them, there wasn't any danger. However, at this moment, Bojiu sneaked into the camp. Bojiu had already infiltrated the base. She used the terrain to form a good cover. She glanced over at Prince. They were all elites from all over the world. With one look, Prince understood what Bojiu meant. On the other side of the haystack, 2 soldiers were chatting. Be alert, I heard there are 7 of them. What's wrong? Didn't regiment commander say that they like to move in the dark? It's daytime now, they wouldn't be so foolish to come. The moment he finished speaking, his vision turned black. He was covered by his backpack. He wanted to shout, but the other party grabbed his throat. His teammate was the same. Bojiu had always been fast. Prince watched as the youngster beside him dashed out like an arrow, dragging the person down with him. This was a hidden corner. It was the most convenient place to tie someone up. Enrich. The 2 soldiers who were tied up tried to make some noise to let others know. Who would have thought that his hands and legs would be tied up? The other party even took off their pants and shirts. Prince still had some conscience. Let's not remove their singlets. Let's leave them with some dignity. Anything. Bojiu straightened her military cap and tightened her belt. In just a short minute, she had changed into a new military uniform. Prince watched from the side as the youngster took the keys. He felt a little sad. He wasn't like this in the past. At the very least, they had never stripped the enemy's clothes during military exercises. How could he pull off someone's pants without batting an eyelid? Prince really wanted to give the youngster a thumbs up. At this time, there were only 5 people left in the team. After Hunter saw the 2 dots disappear, he jumped down from the surveillance vehicle and decided to change his strategy. Unexpectedly, the screen suddenly flashed. The kid that he felt was suspicious had actually managed to infiltrate the enemy's base. At the same time, it was in the military headquarters. Magician was still gloating at the red dot on his phone. All of a sudden, a slender and fair hand reached out from behind him and snatched his phone away. Chapter 1135. Qin Mo didn't look at him, his gaze fixed on the phone screen. His nose bridge was high, his side profile accentuated by his military uniform, making him seem noble and untouchable. Magician swallowed his saliva instinctively, afraid that he would be implicated by Hunter. It was really embarrassing for a military exercise to end up like this. But if it was him, he wouldn't have fought either. After all, there were too few of them and they were all recruits. Moreover, Commander Wu had a deep grudge against them. Definitely he's waiting for them here. If their team had entered, they would definitely be able to complete the mission. But for the recruits, even if they were the top students of the various troops, they wouldn't be able to break through the grand scheme. Magician thought that his captain's gaze would turn cold, and he would at least sneer. Unexpectedly. Who is this? Qin Mo's finger tapped on one of the red dots. The red dot flickered rapidly, completely different from the other hidden soldiers. Magician glanced over. Wolf, he's in there too. It's not him. Qin Mo turned over, his voice calm. He isn't the type. Magician didn't understand. Type? What type? Unorthodox. Chinemo picked up the walkie-talkie beside him, his gaze deepening. Where is he? Hearing the static from the walkie-talkie, Hunter's heart trembled. Captain still found out. Reporting to Captain, he's in the middle of a military exercise. Hunter was crying in his heart when he spoke. Chinemo replied calmly, a military exercise where the entire army was wiped out. Captain, I don't know what happened to that old fox. He actually became more cunning this time. After Hunter finished speaking, he reflected on himself. There's something wrong with my deployment. I'm willing to be punished when they return. Chinemo didn't continue the topic. Instead, he glanced up at the red dot. Number 10, this recruit. Is there something you didn't report? The moment he joined the team last night, he discovered our ambush and even caught our sniper when we weren't paying attention. In just an hour, he leaped over the forest while carrying a heavy load. His observation and explosive power are very strong, but for some reason he doesn't know how to fold the military blanket. He only knows how to roll it into a ball. I was planning to report on him after today's military exercise. So you're saying that you were defeated by a recruit? Magician couldn't help but ask when he heard that. Chinemo glanced back at him. With just one glance, Magician immediately retracted his head. However, this did not stop him from gossiping. He immediately spread Hunter's words in the WeChat group. Hunter didn't need to guess to know the outcome. Should he say that he was careless in making friends, or that Magician's conclusion was too accurate? Boss, why don't we end the military exercise earlier? I'll ask Wolf and the others to return. Hunter wanted to prevent the entire army from being wiped out. Chinmo's finger swiped across the phone screen, replying casually, there's no need for that, give me number 10's number. Hunter's eyes lit up. Captain, you're going to command? I'm going to test the recruit's ability. Chinemo tilted his head and pointed. Position. Yes. Magician immediately locked onto the contact. Hunter wanted to ask more questions. Chinemo turned off the walkie-talkie. At the same time, in the blue team's camp, Bojo was already smoking with the other team. How's the smoke? Not bad, brother. Which team are you from? 3 in a row, Bojo replied calmly. When Prince heard this, he coughed twice as he smoked. Oh right, be more alert later. Bojo continued. Aren't there 5 people left in the red team? The 3 soldiers chuckled. There's only 5 of them. They probably won't dare to come out. Besides, we have a sniper with us. Don't be afraid. They won't dare to come out in broad daylight. That's true. Bojo flicked the cigarette in her hand, a faint smile on her face. You're right, they won't dare to come. Prince. Do we not exist when we are standing in front of them? Honestly, brother, where did you learn to act so well? But we can't let our guard down. One of the 3 garrison soldiers opened his mouth again. According to the information we received, there's a person called Wolf in this batch of recruits. His marksmanship is especially good. He's been in the special forces before and has carried out many overseas missions, so we still have to be careful. Don't fail miserably in an easy task. Bojo raised a brow with the cigarette in her mouth. This isn't the same as the news we received. What news did you get? The 3 garrison soldiers immediately became interested. Bojo took the cigarette away, stuffing one hand into her pocket. There's a recruit in the red team who is good at disguising and hiding. His computer skills are top-notch and he's young and handsome. While Bojo was speaking, Prince was calculating the people around them, trying to figure out which of them fit the description. The soldier asked, there's such a person? What's his code name? Code name? Bojo picked up a tree branch beside her and drew 4 words on the ground. The soldiers paused when they saw it. Sugar. Daddy. Prince's lips twitched. He needed to reevaluate his comrade's narcissism. He was really thick-skinned. Bojo didn't feel anything at all. Since she was here, she had to announce her codename, right? Right at this moment, a person with a military rank walked over from the right. He pointed at Bojo and the others. What are you doing? Watch carefully. Bojo lifted her gun without a change in expression. It wasn't a mission, just a way for them to split up. After the person left, Bojo tilted her head. Bojo tilted her head and lowered her voice. Her clear voice was obviously different from usual, when it was transmitted through the walkie-talkie. "Wolf, is Wolf there?" There was a rustling sound coming from the other end of the walkie-talkie. "Why are you looking for Wolf?" A clear magnetic force transmitted over. Bojio's fingers paused heavily. Her heartbeat was obviously different. Her signal wasn't good. There should be some kind of interference device. But the signal was good. Hence, through the walkie-talkie, the voice was elegant and familiar. "I'm asking you a question. Why are you looking for Wolf?" Chin Mo tilted his head. There was a layer of air between his thin lips and the walkie-talkie. The voice was so close. It seemed as though the person was right beside her. Bojio's ears twitched. She changed her voice. "Reporting, Captain. I need Wolf to clear the surrounding snipers." "I can, but do you know what that means?" Chin Mo's voice always sounded lazy and indifferent no matter when he spoke. Bojio straightened. "I do." "Oh." Chin Mo arched a brow. He was dressed in his military uniform. When he moved, his brows looked handsome. Based on Bojio's understanding of the Almighty, she had to explain her analysis. Otherwise, her words wouldn't be convincing. If Wolf's Fong carries out a cleanup mission, his position will also be exposed. Bojio changed the topic. "But I believe that with Wolf's skills, he won't be caught within half an hour. I'm confident he can destroy their command center within this time." Bojio listened to the reply from the walkie-talkie. Unexpectedly, Chin Mo lifted his lips. "Did you guys hear that?" "Yes." "Yes." There wasn't just one reply. Bojio held her forehead helplessly. Did he turn on the public channel? The Almighty was still the same as before, as black-bellied as he could be. "Wolf." Chin Mo's voice came through again. A deep voice came through the walkie-talkie. "Here. Cooperate with him." Chin Mo glanced up at the red dot on the screen. "I'm interested to see how he is going to destroy the command center." "Yes, boss." Wolf, who had been hiding for a long time, came out from the bushes. His perfect disguise was almost the same color as his surroundings. Bojio was about to speak when Chin Mo's lone voice came through. There was a hint of laziness in his voice. "Your code name." Prince thought that this black fellow was going to say the words "I need a beating" again. Who would have thought that when he turned his head, the man would turn off the walkie-talkie? Although the action was fast and handsome, for some reason, it made people feel that this guy was a little guilty. Guilty? If someone hadn't passed by at this moment, Prince would have rubbed his eyes. How could that arrogant youngster be guilty? Chin Mo arched a brow when he heard the ringing sound from the other end. Magician guessed. Something must have happened. After all, no one would hang up the call of the commander-in-chief. Chin Mo wasn't bothered. He was more concerned about the people who had entered the jungle a few hours earlier than Bojio. They had never expected that the key to the military demonstration would be in the hands of that youngster, who didn't know how to fold the blanket. On the other side, it was already noon. The commander of the Blue Division had finally relaxed. The moment she relaxed, she felt hungry. She asked someone to prepare 2 big steamed buns and freed her hand to call Chin Mo. When Chin Mo picked up the call, he arched a brow. "Commander Wang." "Youngster Mo, you haven't had lunch, right? Do you want to come over for a meal? Let's see how long your soldiers can last." It wasn't easy for him to vent his anger. Commander Wang had to make this call. Chin Mo picked up the call. Everyone, including Hunter, listened intently. All the soldiers looked at each other and thought to themselves, "Boss, what kind of crazy thing did you do to force a regiment commander to become a show-off maniac?" Commander Wang was calling to show off, everyone knew that. But Chin Mo lifted his thin lips. "I'll head over in a while. Commander Wang should know my taste. Since it's a banquet, it's better not to be too shabby." "Commander Wang." "I'm just showing off. You're really coming over for a meal? It's fine if you're eating, but you're acting as though you're going to rip me off." F***ck, this youngster Mo. He was a scourge wherever he went. But what could he do? He had already boasted, so he could only grit his teeth. "No problem." Chin Mo hung up the phone and reached over to fasten the last button on his military uniform. For some reason, his actions made him look like he was abstinent. Magician took the chance, leaning over to ask softly, "Boss, didn't we beat Commander Wang during the previous military drill? Why does he seem to hate us so much?" 5 times. Chin Mo tilted his head. the perfect curve of his chin on full display. Magician's mouth fell open. 5 times? When did that happen? Before I brought you guys along, I sniped an entire company. Chinmo's voice sounded distracted. The surrounding soldiers were speechless. It was no wonder Commander Wang was behaving this way. No one would be infuriated after being wiped out 5 times. This was the reason for his hatred. Boss had actually agreed to a meal. Commander Wang probably wouldn't be too happy even if he won. Chinmo drove his own car out of the base. Little Blackie hadn't moved for a long time, the navigation system fluctuating. It was puzzled. Why hadn't Master come to steal it after a day? You seem excited these 2 days? Chinmo held onto the steering wheel, his words slowing the fluctuation of the navigation system. As an intelligent system, it couldn't lie. The word excited is used to describe you humans. Is that so? Chinmo's gaze was faint. Little Blackie chose to stop talking, wishing for Master to pick it up as soon as possible. If not, it would be exposed. The speed of the Lamborghini was much faster than the military truck. Commander Wang regretted making that call. He tilted his head towards his adjutant. Isn't this person shameless? Tell me. The adjutant replied softly. Don't you always know he's like this? Regiment Commander Wang took a deep breath. Go and tell the kitchen to prepare something good. We can't embarrass ourselves. You and I will go and fetch him. Adjutant. You still have to pick him up? Commander, why did you make that call? Around half an hour later, the Lamborghini started to enter the blue team's camp. Wolf swept past the bushes, finding the uniform his comrade had prepared for him. He glanced up towards Prince. Where did you get the uniform? Prince used his chin to point at Bojio. Here, this youngster took it off someone. Wolf glanced at the youngster, not asking further. When should I fire the sniper rifle? In a while, Prince and I will infiltrate the engine room. Bojio adjusted her military cap, covering half of her eyes. I'll leave the periphery to you. Wolf replied, understood. Let's go. Bojio lifted her gun. In that instant, Prince found her handsome. Chapter 1136. Prince wasn't sure why they were heading to the engine room, but since things had come to this, he could only follow. There was still quite some time before they reached the engine room. Young Master was walking when he turned around and suddenly paused. Hey, Sugar Daddy. F***CK, look back at your code name. What's that? It's our military car. That Lamborghini. Bojio glanced behind her. His gaze swept over the slender figure sitting in the driver's seat. She felt the surrounding wind turning silent. His heartbeat quickened a little. There was a slight excitement in it. The dopamine concentration in her brain was rising. She didn't look away. Prince watched the black youngster's unmoving gaze. You really like this car. Bojio thought to herself. What do you know? Daddy likes people who drive. F***CK, who exactly is this person? Why is the Blue Army welcoming him? Prince couldn't understand. Bojio stood there, her heart itching. It was a pity she still had things to do. Otherwise, she would blend into the crowd and take a good look at the Almighty. She decided to ask Little Blackie which room the Almighty was staying in when she returned. Bojio lifted her rifle and pulled up the mask covering her face, revealing only her black spectacles. Her long legs were wrapped in a military green camouflage uniform. It was the same for her upper body. With the rifle, she looked like a soldier from the special forces stationed at the border, handsome and tough. The Lamborghini was too fast. It was just a flash. Chinmo's handsome and elegant face left a deep impression on people. Prince turned over, a glint flashing past his eyes. F***CK, there's such a person in the military. He must have been chosen based on his looks. Bojio didn't reply, her eyes focused on a single spot. Chinmo didn't notice the 2 soldiers stationed there. After he stopped the car, Commander Wang managed to maintain his image well, a smile on his face. Come little Mo, I just found an orchid. Give me a reward. Chinmo reached out to push open the car door. He was dressed in a well-ironed military uniform. His waist was tied up, and his belt accentuated his long and slender legs. There was also a tassel on his shoulder, not to mention his elegant and handsome face. In an instant, The surrounding soldiers were a little aggrieved as they looked at their regiment commander. Of all the people they could have invited, why did they have to invite this devil? Qin Mo could feel the unwelcome gaze. But the Almighty had the ability to ignore this kind of gaze. With a smile on his face, he took off his white gloves and said, "Leader Wang, have you forgotten that I'm here to eat, not to admire the flowers?" Across the crowd, Bojio watched him from afar. She took a glance before turning back to take another look. In the end, she shook her head. As expected, beauty is the bane of men. Beauty? Where are they? Prince looked around but didn't see any female soldiers. Bojio didn't reply. She glanced up at the location of the red dot. She knew that Wolf was already on the move. She turned and took advantage of the time when everyone was welcoming Qin Mo to sneak into the blue team's engine room with Prince. It was impossible for the engine room to be unguarded. But Bojio was wearing the military uniform here. As soon as he walked in, he took out a pack of cigarettes. A soldier was still typing inside. The moment he turned, Bojio shot him in the chest. There weren't any bullets in the gun, and it was silenced. When it hit a person, it would only emit red smoke. The soldier who was shot widened his eyes. He was about to shout for help. Bojio placed a hand on his body, her voice calm. "According to the rules of the military demonstration, you have already sacrificed yourself. If you continue to speak, you will be breaking the rules." The soldier was still sizing up the youngster's uniform. When he understood what was going on, he grabbed his hair fiercely. Bojio laughed lightly and stuffed a cigarette into his mouth. She reached out and took the walkie-talkie that he was about to take out. "I'll take care of this for you." The soldier. F***CK, where did she come from? One of the blue dots on the map suddenly disappeared. Someone would definitely ask. After all, the blue team had a blue dot to observe them. Hello, number 114, what's going on? Bojio picked up the walkie-talkie and turned her head. "Nothing. I just removed the sensor." "Be careful." "All right." After the call ended, the person on the other side was still worried. He said to the two soldiers around him, "Go to the engine room and see what happened." Yes. After receiving the order, the two of them picked up their guns and walked toward the direction of the engine room. Bojio was already seated in front of the computer with the walkie-talkie in her hand. She placed both her hands on the keyboard, typing loudly. Prince glanced over in shock. He could only see the lines of code on the screen, watching the speed of the youth's typing. Was this guy really a technical soldier? A technical soldier who was better at jungle combat than him? Prince felt as though he had suffered a fatal blow. As she typed, she didn't forget to contact Wolf. "Begin." "All right." As Wolf's words fell, a loud bang was heard. Another blue dot disappeared from the map. "Continue." Bojio tapped the enter key and the image on the screen changed instantly. Bang. The blue team's second sniper clutched his chest blankly. He had no idea how he had died. At this moment, the clattering sound filled the entire command center of the blue team. Their commander had gone for lunch, and only the adjutant was left. What's going on? Why did the blue dots on their side disappear? Reporting. The technical soldier's fingers flew across the keyboard. "Someone hacked into our network. It's a virus. We're trying to get rid of it. When will it be fixed?" I'm not sure yet." "You don't know?" The adjutant looked at the image and instinctively felt that something was amiss. "It's the red team. Inform our commander immediately." "I'm afraid it's too late." The technical soldier paused. "In 2 minutes, our command center will be theirs." The adjutant turned, his gaze wavering. "What did you say?" "I tried to defend, but I wasn't able to do so." This was the first time the technical soldier had encountered such a situation. Was there something wrong with the information they had received? Was there such a person on the red team? When the adjutant heard this, he was so shocked that he fell back into his chair. Then he said, "That's impossible. If we want to seize command, we have to enter the engine room first." "Engine room? Contact the snipers lying in ambush." Yes. The technical soldier had wanted to contact them through the walkie-talkie, but all of the walkie-talkies had lost their signal. This wasn't a coincidence. It definitely wasn't a coincidence. The virus created by Z wouldn't be able to snatch the command away. At the very least, they had to cut off their communication. Bojo sat in front of the computer, her posture relaxed. She wasn't afraid of the camera above her since her face was covered up tightly. The color drained from the technical soldier's face. His first reaction was to check the surveillance in the engine room. In an instant, on the screen in the command center, there was only a youngster with a black scarf and a rifle by her side. The youngster seemed to know someone was looking at her. She lifted her head and glanced towards the camera. She even extended her hand to greet the technical soldier. "Hi, brother from the blue team." The veins on the technical soldier's forehead were about to pop. "Who's your brother?" At this moment, Commander Wong had the same thoughts. Especially after Chin Mo sat down and started to order. He wasn't treating him as an outsider. Fortunately, he was confident this time. Commander Wong's heart ached for his fish. This Mo brat, he didn't order anything after coming, acting as though he was interested in his fish and wanted to cook it. His tone was as light as a breeze and as calm as the clouds. Commander Wong treasured his fish. It was famous within a few hundred miles. A soldier at the side said, "This is our commander's treasure. You should choose something else." "Treasure?" Chin Mo chuckled. "All the more reason to have a taste." Commander Wong took a deep breath. No, this Mo brat was intentionally angering him. He couldn't fall for it. "It's just a fish, it's fine." Commander Wong waved his hands. "Huh." The soldier was in a daze. Commander Wong replied, "What, huh? Leave it to the kitchen, cook it." The soldier couldn't believe it, so he got this fish. Regiment Commander Wong changed the water for him every day and treated him like a treasure. Now that he was being treated as a dish, he probably wanted to cry. Commander Wong watched as the kitchen went over to scoop it up, his teeth clenched. His heart was bleeding. But Chin Mo exuded a noble aura, drinking his tea as though everything around him had nothing to do with him, including the fish. Commander Wong regretted making the call once again. But since things had come to this, he might as well brag to the end. At least he would feel better. "Young lad Mo, there are only 4 or 5 of you left. If you can't do it, just send them back. You aren't the one in command. Why are you still practicing? It's just a waste of time." Commander Wong felt much better after saying that. However, it just so happened that the person who was supposed to give in didn't give in. He even took a sip of his tea elegantly. "Wong Tuan, the key is to win by surprise. The number of people is not the key." Commander Wong shook his head with a smile. "You don't want to admit defeat. You only have Wolf and you think you can come and go as you please? The rest of the recruits will probably be eliminated soon. It's just a matter of time." With that, he raised his hand, pointing at the red dot. Look, another one disappeared. But after that, Commander Wong paused. Regiment Commander Wong was stunned. Other than the red dot that had disappeared, there was another red dot in the center of their territory. Chapter 1137. How did this happen? Commander Wong bolted up. He was about to call for help. Just then the adjutant strode in. Before he could say a word, the beeping alarm resounded throughout the entire military camp. "What's going on?" Commander Wong raged. The adjutant knew it was too late. Someone infiltrated the engine room. Using some unknown method, the entire electronic command system is in his hands. Where's the technical soldier? Commander Wong couldn't be bothered about Chin Mo's presence. He wanted to know if there was a way to salvage the situation. The adjutant shook his head. "There's no way. How did someone infiltrate the engine room? What are the snipers doing?" Commander Wong was getting more and more furious. The adjutant was helpless. The other party didn't enter the forest immediately. He probably came after daybreak and disguised himself as one of us. Moreover, the timing of the ambush was impeccable. After infiltrating the engine room, Wolf followed immediately, wiping out most of the snipers. "Are you saying that we lost to these two?" Regiment Commander Wong wanted to curse out loud. The adjutant felt ashamed. To be precise, there are 3 of them. It's just that the third one seems to have nothing to do. Most importantly, it's that technical soldier. This is a mistake in our investigation. We didn't expect such a person to be hidden among the recruits. The adjutant felt ashamed. More accurately, there were 3 of them, but the third one seemed to be idling around. Most importantly, the technical soldier. This was a mistake in our investigation. We hadn't expected such a person to be hidden among the recruits. Commander Wang paced back and forth in anger. What about the 10 people in the engine room? They couldn't stop him? It seems like they've all been eliminated. When the adjutant said this, his face was a little hot. Commander Wang didn't want to ask anymore. 10 of them couldn't defeat a technical soldier. Speaking of which, how would a technical soldier know about jungle warfare? After Commander Wang calmed down, he was about to ponder over the question when he turned to see a certain someone drinking tea leisurely. He seemed to have understood something. You knew that your soldiers would be like this. Commander Wang felt like he had asked a stupid question. Wait a minute. If that was the case, what about the meal? Commander Wang narrowed his eyes. You purposely agreed to this meal to lower my guard, to lure me away so that your troops can ambush us. Little Mo, when will you be able to have a fair fight with me? Mo's eyes narrowed. Mo's face darkened. Qin Mo sat there, his handsome face tilted slightly. He said slowly, Regiment Wang, I only agreed to this meal because I took a fancy to your fish. As for lowering your guard, you weren't cautious from the start. After all, the recruits we sent are our regiment's recruits. The adjutant listened at the side. His first action was to hug Regiment Commander Wang's waist. He was afraid that the captain would throw the teapot at young Master Qin. Why was young Master Qin even mentioning the fish at this time? Don't stop me. This time, I'm going to beat up this icy brat. Commander Wang's voice was extremely loud. The adjutant lowered his voice. Regiment Commander, you are no longer the company commander. Be careful of your image. The words "pay attention to the influence" still worked. Chapter 1138. Commander Wang, you can check if you're interested. Qin Mo stood up, looking handsome in his military uniform. Even though it was a shameless remark, he said it in a polite manner. It seems like Commander Wang isn't in the mood to have lunch with me. I'll pack the boiled fish and bring it back. Adjutant. It's fine if you dine and dash, but you want to take it back? Young Master Qin, you're really attracting hatred. Commander Wang didn't want to talk to him anymore. The adjutant finally got a taste of what it meant by, it's easier to invite Buddha than to send him away. It wasn't easy for young Master Qin to say that he was going to do it. So be it, he could send him away quickly so he wouldn't have to fight. The main point was that with his age, he wouldn't be able to defeat young Master Qin. Commander Wang returned to his seat, taking a sip of cold tea. Is he gone? Yes. The adjutant nodded. Commander Wang wanted to retort, but someone entered at this moment. Hence, he had to maintain his imposing image. Report. Come in. Commander, we found Wolf's tracks, we're chasing him. Commander Wang sighed. What's there to chase? Come back. Come back. The reporter was confused. Commander Wang pointed to the black screen. The command center is in their hands. It means that the military exercise is over. Over. When did that happen? The Blue Army was still in a daze. On the other hand, the Red Army looked at the 3 figures that jumped out of the jungle. They were speechless. As the first batch of people who had been ambushed, they never expected that they would actually win. And it was because of that person. The recruits from the Red Army glanced over at the youngster who was tying his shoelaces. The young man's disguise was perfect. From head to toe, he was wearing the Blue Army's combat uniform. There wasn't even a single flaw in his disguise. The only distinguishable part was his face. It was indeed the person on their side who didn't even know how to fold a military blanket. They had been annihilated by a recruit. Commander Wang wasn't happy, but he wanted to poach him over. That was why he had asked Mo. That brat had already turned into a spirit. He was extremely vigilant and didn't say anything. Commander Wang narrowed his eyes, contacting the technical soldier. Show me the footage from the engine room. He also wanted to see which unit this person came from so that he could find the other party's original unit and snatch the person over. Unexpectedly, there was a video. However, in the video, all that could be seen was that person's clean and efficient movements. With a sideways swing of his gun, He directly eliminated his opponent. It was impossible to tell what he looked like. Because that person's face was covered with a black mask, the only thing that could be seen was a pair of extremely black eyes. It was impossible to tell who this person was. Then there was the sound of a slender finger being lifted. That kind of speed was rare. Similarly, the speed at which this person left was also unprecedentedly fast. He didn't look like a recruit at all. Instead, it seemed like something that Kid Mo's team would do. They came and went without a trace, leaving no trace behind. It was only now that Regiment Commander Wang realized that he had underestimated his opponent in this military exercise. This was a premeditated invasion. Compared to overseas missions, it was nothing. However, who was this recruit? What was his identity? Where did he come from? How could a military exercise be so mysterious? What kind of mission was this group of people going on? Thinking about this, Regiment Commander Wang understood. That youngster Qin Mo was using them as practice. He was using this military exercise to pick out recruits. Regiment Commander Wang was right. That was the reality. 3 batches of recruits. From over 100 people, there were only around 20 people left. Bo Jiu was the one who was picked out again. Her execution ability was strong, but her ability to take care of herself was terrible. How did such a person become a soldier? The inspector paused once more. After some thought, he decided it was time to report to his captain. At this moment, while everyone was eating in the canteen, Bo Jiu walked towards the Lamborghini that was parked under the shade of the tree. When little Blackie started up, the entire car was filled with excitement. It knew that its master would definitely come looking for it. It was just a matter of time. After the voice unlocked the car, the navigation system sent out a message. "Master, are you ready? I have enough fuel, you can drive me out now." "Who said I was going to drive you?" Bo Jiu scanned the surroundings. "Which room is the Almighty staying in?" "Little Blackie." "No, Master. What exactly are you here for? Aren't you here to look for me?" The navigation system vibrated twice. 9 o'clock, 3rd floor. 9 o'clock, 3rd floor? Bo Jiu glanced up. It wasn't easy to navigate. Coincidentally, she saw a soldier carrying a bowl of food into the room. "Hey, what's that in your hand?" The soldier turned and smiled. "Captain, it's a bag of boiled fish from the Blue Army. The kitchen heated it up and I'm bringing it in." "I have something to look for, Captain, I'll bring it in." Bo Jiu replied naturally. The soldier didn't suspect anything. He was in a hurry to return to the canteen since it wasn't early anymore. Bo Jiu took the food and prepared to meet the Almighty. Little Blackie listened at the side. Humans were really heartless. It had thought that its master couldn't bear to leave him, but it turned out that she couldn't bear to leave the devil. Bo Jiu really wanted to meet the Almighty. Otherwise, he wouldn't have taken such a risk. The Almighty probably wouldn't be able to recognize her. After all, her appearance, clothing, and skin color had changed greatly. It shouldn't be a problem. However, just in case, it was better for her to stay low when she went in later. Bo Jiu was ready. She raised her hand and knocked on the door. She heard a voice coming from the other side of the door. "Come in." Bo Jiu pushed the door open and walked in. The first thing she saw was the military pants on the wooden chair. There was also a leather belt hanging over it. There were also the military boots on the floor. Through the hazy glass door, she could hear the sound of the shower. She could vaguely see his tall and slender back. The lines were smooth, strong, and perfect, but it wasn't especially sincere. The Almighty was showering? Her heartbeat was clearly different. Through the glass door, Bo Jiu glanced over. It was mainly because the back view was too attractive. Bo Jiu couldn't control her gaze. Her face was a little hot, but it didn't affect her appreciation of the Almighty's beauty. It was a pity that good times didn't last long. As the figure reached out, the shower stopped and there was no sound. Chapter 1139. She had just entered and he was asking her to leave? Bo Jiu arched a brow. She hadn't seen enough. She had to find a reason to stay longer. She leaned against the wall, changing her tone as she admired the Almighty's beautiful back. "There aren't any steamed buns in the canteen, so I got some rice for Captain." Qin Mo paused for a moment, His voice full of charisma followed. A new soldier? The next moment, there was a loud crash. It was the sound of the wooden door being pulled open. Bojio immediately lowered her head, pretending to be arranging the rice bowls. What was the Almighty up to? Why didn't he inform her before coming out? Bojio's heart skipped a beat. Fortunately, her face was dark, otherwise, he would have noticed the commotion. Fortunately, the Almighty's back was facing her when he came out. He held a towel with one hand, caressing his black hair in front of an average-sized mirror. Bojio heaved a sigh of relief, her voice flawless. Reporting he's new. This tone. A northerner? Chinemo wiped his hair with one hand, his black hair covering his eyes. Bojio couldn't see his face from her position, but it was still a beautiful sight. Sunlight slowly seeped in through the large window, dyeing his shadow with a layer of fur. Chinemo, who had just showered, was only wearing a pair of brown army pants with a black leather belt. His tall and straight back was curvy enough to make people's noses bleed as he lifted his arms. The water droplets on his hair hadn't dried yet. The sunlight shone in, making everyone's throat tighten. Seriously, the Almighty's actions were against the rules. Bojio was afraid she would give herself away if she continued looking. While the Almighty was still drying his hair, she replied, "Captain, I'll be heading out." "All right." Even someone as smart as Chinemo wouldn't pay attention to a soldier who was delivering food after a shower. When Bojio closed the door, she caught sight of the person who had finished drying his hair. He picked up the gun at the side and tilted his head to take aim. His black hair and the water droplets splashed onto his handsome face, his side profile etched into a silhouette. Bojio glanced at him subconsciously. He was too handsome. The handsome Almighty in his military uniform always made her heart itch. Bojio felt that this wasn't good. She had to restrain herself so she didn't stay any longer. When Chinemo heard the sound of the door closing, he looked over and frowned. When did they change the fireman? Bojio came downstairs, prepared to have a good talk with Little Blackie. Little Black had the same idea. It had to reveal the true face of the great Demon King, who knew that its program had just started, and it hadn't even finished speaking. The owner asked, "What's the Almighty's daily routine?" Xiao Hei's eyes twitched. "Master, you've been bewitched by this man. As a competent smart car, I think we should have a chat about this little vixen's character first." Character. Bojio arched a brow. "What would a car like you know about character? Give me the data." Little Black. "Master, why are you asking about his routine?" Bojio swept a glance at the recruits who were about to walk over. She tilted her head and adjusted her military cap, using it as a cover. She didn't stop her voice. "Of course it's to admire the Almighty in his military uniform. When I went up just now, the Almighty was bathing and I didn't get a chance to take a good look. Now that I'm in the dark and he's out in the open, he can see everything." Little Blackie analyzed the data he had obtained ever since he had met Chinemo. "Master, is it really okay for you to be so smitten?" "It's perfect for the Almighty." Bojio tilted her head. Even in the dark, a devilish smile could be seen. What else could Little Blackie say? He decided to ask the netizens while it was being activated. His master was so bewitched by this little vixen that she didn't even care about him. What should he do? The netizens' replies were the most hurtful. He could only cry in silence. It was easy to get the data. After Bojio got what she wanted, she turned and placed her long legs on the wheel. "Remember, cover for me. It'll be troublesome if the Almighty finds out I'm here." Little Blackie wavered. "Indeed, it will be troublesome. Master, I thought your intelligence had been eaten away by beauty. Thankfully, you still have a bit of consciousness left. I'm really touched by your words." Bojio arched a brow. "Your car is good at everything, but it talks too much. I'll apply to wash it tomorrow." "I don't think you can. Ever since I came here, the great Demon King has been washing my car personally. But master, to be honest, the great Demon King must hate you. The day you left, he seemed a little strange." Little Black didn't understand human emotions, so he could only explain it on the surface. Bojio clenched her fists before releasing them. Her tone sounded nonchalant. "I won't let the Almighty find out before I destroy the organization." Little Blackie didn't reply. From a certain perspective, he trusted his master's disguise. Bojio's disguise was indeed good. But even the best disguise couldn't stop the Almighty from noticing her. This is his information? Chinemo sat in the light. He was already dressed in his military uniform. From his forehead to his chin, he seemed to be emitting a noble light. Yes. Hunter nodded. Almost the entire operation team is here, which means that they can all see the information of recruit number 10. When did the army recruit such a genius? Magician was still in disbelief. He's young and can fight. Why didn't he write a code name? The photo is blacked out, nothing can be seen. Hunter, did you get the wrong information? Hunter was speechless. This is the information I got. A technical soldier that can fight in the wilderness. Our army has unlimited potential. Magician frowned. Such a person should be in the state security. Why is he here? It would be strange if the state security didn't snatch him away. Hunter arched a brow. You're asking me? He might even be willing to join us. Magician chuckled, placing his arm on Hunter's shoulder. If that's the case, it's understandable that you got slapped in the face when you went to fetch him. Even Commander Wang was furious and anxious, asking boss many times who he was. They wanted to snatch him away. With that, Magician glanced behind him. Wolf, do you have any concrete understanding of him since he was in the same dormitory? Wolf's voice was deep. He's skilled, observant and vigilant, but his basic living skills are lacking. He doesn't seem like someone from the army. Doesn't seem like someone from the army? Why? Magician was curious. Chapter 1140. Magician wanted to say something, but Chinemo opened his mouth. Chinemo, who was sitting on the other side, opened his mouth. His voice was indifferent. Go to the training ground and ask. 5 words. The decision was made. The operation team was indeed interested in this new technical soldier. When they received the news, Bojio was still training. She carried a gun and crawled forward while shooting from a distance. Of course, the most important thing was running with weights. Number 10. The instructor's voice was hoarse in the hot weather. Step out. Bojio paused before running over. Her face was still dark, but it wasn't ugly. Follow me. The instructor sized her up and prepared to bring her away. Prince watched from the side, wondering if this person was going to be eliminated. But after some thought, it wasn't possible since the black youngster had done a great job. What was he going to do? When the instructor called for her, Bojio assumed it was because she hadn't folded her blanket. It wasn't the first time after all. Just as Bojio was about to tell the instructor that she wasn't able to fold tofu, a tall figure appeared. After turning a corner, he saw a slender figure standing there. The man was wearing a military uniform with a tassel on his shoulder. One of his hands was hanging by his side. Perhaps it was because the sun was too bright, or perhaps he had just taken a shower. But when he stood there, his pitch-black hair seemed to be plated with a layer of light. He wasn't the only one there. There were a few other officers, but none of them could compare to that person's outstanding looks, especially when he was dressed in a military uniform. Bojio's first reaction was, oh no. His long legs didn't move. The person on the other side had already finished speaking and looked up at her. Bojio lowered her lids, trying to cover her face with the military cap. It was effective. After all, they weren't very close to each other. But even so, it was still very dangerous. She couldn't escape. He's here. The hunter straightened his back a little. Chinemo tilted his head. His gaze hadn't landed yet. Magician asked, oh right, why doesn't the recruit have a code name? Yes. Wolf's tone had always been calm. It's probably because it's too unique and can't be written on the information sheet. Magician arched a brow. Oh. What's his name? Sugar Daddy. Wolf paused for a moment when he said that. Magician's expression changed. F*CK, are you serious about this code name? That's what he said. Wolf also didn't know how to come up with such a name. A few people were talking. No one noticed Chinmo's sudden pause when he heard the code name. Then, his gaze fell on the figure who was walking towards him with his head lowered. The figure was neither tall nor short. His military cap was pulled down very low, making it impossible to see his appearance. Only his chin was revealed, and his skin was very dark. The camouflage combat uniform had been ruined by the young man to the point where it was completely unrecognizable. If this person was thrown onto the training ground, he would be nothing more than an ordinary recruit. Qin Mo's eyes dimmed. There seemed to be something churning in them, like the deep sea of the night. "Sir, I've brought him here." The instructor saluted as soon as he touched the ground with his heels. Bojo raised her hand as well. Her actions didn't seem out of place. After all, the more flustered she was, the more likely the Almighty would recognize her. With her current attire, skin tone, and the military cap as a cover, she could try her luck. But for some reason, she felt as though she had raised her hand for too long. "Return to the team." A voice rang beside her ear. It was Qin Mo's words to the instructor. The instructor replied, "Yes," before jogging back in the direction he had come from. Bojo heaved a sigh of relief. But very quickly she regained her composure. Her gaze landed on the pair of military boots that was getting closer and closer. Her heartbeat quickened. He heard the man's voice H. It wasn't a safe question. By asking this question, it meant that the Almighty was treating her like a recruit. Bojo changed her voice. 19. Army background? Qin Mo's gaze deepened when he asked the question. His gaze landed on the top of the person's head. His expression still noble and indifferent. Magician and the others didn't see anything. They still felt that there wasn't anything wrong with the question. In the past, whenever a recruit joined the team, the captain would ask the same question. Bojo could tell from the voice that they were very close, but everything was within a safe range. The more they were like this, the more it meant that everything was going according to plan. "Yes." Bojo lowered her head further. The voice by her ear asked slowly with a unique nonchalance, "Don't the people from the army know how to fold their blankets?" Bojo replied directly, "Sir, I'm the only one who doesn't know how to do it. Just now, your roommate said that you don't look like you came from the military. What do you think?" Qin Mo asked slowly. Bojo immediately realized that it was indeed a loophole that she didn't know how to fold her blankets. But she couldn't let the Almighty know about this loophole. Bojo found an excuse. "Sir, they said the same thing when I was in the army. They almost kicked me back home because of this. Fortunately, my other achievements made up for it. That's why I stayed in the army. I heard that the other units have strict requirements." "Of course. Which soldier doesn't know how to fold their blankets?" Magician said. "But your other results are indeed outstanding. You are a technical soldier. Why would you want to join us? You should have a better place to go." "There isn't a soldier who doesn't want to join the elite soldiers unit. I'm no exception." As long as it wasn't the Almighty's question, Bojo didn't feel any pressure answering. Magician and Wolf looked at each other. There wasn't anything wrong with this reason, but it was a little far-fetched. However, he didn't know what else to ask. After all, he needed a few more days to understand more. Whether it was Magician or Hunter, both of them thought that this was enough for them to return to the team. Unexpectedly, "You guys go back first." Qin Mo turned his head, his voice calm. The few people in the operation team were puzzled. They go back first? Why? Could it be that boss wanted to ask this recruit alone? After figuring this out, Magician and the rest replied, "Yes." He moved very quickly, disappearing into the horizon in 3 or 4 steps. Bojo was still thinking about what the Almighty would ask her after sending them away. It would probably be something related to computers or hacking. How should she deal with it? However, in the next second her brain froze. It wasn't because of anything else. Instead, it was because of the words that rang in her ears. "Sugar Daddy, when are you going to stop using it?" Chapter 1141. In that instant, Bojo froze. Bojo froze, her heart clenching. That voice was careless. But it also meant that her disguise had been exposed. The nickname Sugar Daddy was too harmful. Bojo was still thinking about how to explain why she was in the military. On the other side, Qin Mo spoke again with a hint of coldness. "What is it? You don't even have the courage to look up at me?" Bojo could only bite the bullet and look up. She saw the cold and handsome face and the frown on his face. "Did you go to Africa?" It was obvious that the Almighty didn't like her skin color. If not, he wouldn't have looked so disgusted. Bojo felt that her skin color was much darker than the Almighty's. It was ugly. It's a disguise. Chin Emo sized the youngster up. Come over. Bojo took a step forward. Chin Emo watched her, his left hand in his pocket tightening. His military uniform was ramrod straight, his gaze deep as he asked, "Why are you here?" This time, someone from the military looked for me to join the operation team for an overseas mission. Bojo was worried that the Almighty would reject her, hence, she decided to tell him the truth. After hearing Bojo's words, Chin Emo chuckled. As expected, it wasn't because of him. He released his left hand, the emotions in his eyes fading. I thought Z liked to be alone, and felt that everyone was a burden. She would abandon anyone. Bojo opened her mouth, wanting to say something. That person turned around indifferently. His tall and straight back was filled with a sense of distance. His long legs paused for a moment. I'll give you 1 day to leave this place. Bojo couldn't call him back. She couldn't understand the Almighty's reaction. Hadn't the Almighty left first that day? Was there something she didn't know? Bojo stilled. Her first reaction was to look for her Lamborghini and ask about the situation that day. When Little Blackie was opened again, it was delighted. After all, Master had always been secretive when she saw it. She had never been so open before. She was definitely going to drive it away. Master, has your identity been exposed? Run away now? I agree with your idea. It's better to escape as soon as possible. If we're late, it'll be very difficult. Little Black said excitedly. This was all obtained through its intelligent analysis. Bojo arched a brow. So what if your identity is exposed? Who said anything about leaving? What exactly happened when the Almighty drove you away? Tell me in detail. Xiao He was rather regretful about this. That's all? That day after the Great Demon King drove me away, he drove me back to the castle, and even bought you a midnight snack on the way. Speaking of which, Master, you must be careful of this little demon of yours. He was willing to be kidnapped by you, and he even wanted to use your guilt to see how you would confess. All of this was premeditated. What plan could there be? As a car, you shouldn't have such rich imagination. Bojo stood beside the car and thought for a moment before asking. He didn't want to leave that day. Little Black answered affirmatively, no. Bojo smiled faintly with a hint of sweetness. The Almighty still likes me, even though my identity is Z. Little Black was helpless. Master, wake up. Your identity has been exposed. You should be considering whether he will catch you or kick you away, not continue to be bewitched by his beauty. He did want to kick me away. Bojo's gaze turned a little further away like amber. There was a hint of loneliness. After all, liking someone was one thing, but whether he could accept it was another. But as long as he didn't hate her, everything was fine. But based on the current situation, it would probably be difficult for the Almighty to accept her. Xiao He was right. The most important thing for her to consider now was how she could stay. Bojo stood there, her face tilted, deep in thought. She didn't notice Chin Emo lowering his head to look out of the window on the second floor. When the youngster neared the Lamborghini, Chin Mo's gaze turned cold. The temperature in Chin Mo's gaze had obviously dropped. Of course, he wasn't worried that a certain someone would be able to leave after entering this place. But he didn't want to experience the feeling of being abandoned a second time. Captain, you were looking for me? Hunter walked in. Chin Emo reached out and passed him a form. Hunter's gaze trembled. You want to eliminate number 10? Boss, even though number 10 isn't up to standard in some aspects, we need his abilities. Besides, before Hunter could finish his words, he stopped talking. He knew that his boss wouldn't change his mind so easily. But what happened next was out of Hunter's expectations. No, the entire operation team realized a problem. Wherever the captain appeared, the recruit would definitely appear nearby in less than 5 minutes. Just like now, running at dusk was their captain's habit. He didn't like to be disturbed. They didn't dare to go near him, and would just do whatever they wanted to do. Who would have thought that the recruit, who didn't know what was going on, would take a detour from another path and merge with the team leader? It wasn't that Chin-mo didn't notice a certain someone's actions today. Especially now, that person was smiling faintly as he ran while looking at him. It was hard to ignore. Only Chin-mo could ignore that gaze. If it was someone else, they wouldn't have been able to continue running. There wasn't a standard running track in the military. Instead, they had basic training in the training camp. In order to maintain the best condition of his body, running was as easy as drinking water for Chin-mo. But in the past, he didn't use much time after 10 laps. The soldier beside him didn't understand. Why was he so slow today? Especially when he was on the 5th lap. Young Master Chin glanced to his side. Perhaps because he was disturbed, his brows were slightly furrowed. But young Master Chin didn't say anything. This was too strange. The soldier didn't understand. Hence, such a scene appeared on the training ground. The tall man ran in front of them effortlessly. The youngster who was running with him seemed to be unable to keep up. Under the dusk, the shadows of these two slender figures were elongated. Gradually, there was a change in their breathing. Magician, who was watching from the side, thought that their captain must have disliked the recruit, and thought of such a method to mess with him. He had to admit that their captain was too cunning. No matter how arrogant the recruit was, he wouldn't be able to last long in their captain's hands. Their captain was too much. If he wanted someone to leave, he could just say so. Why did he have to use such a method? But just as he had this thought. Chapter 1142. Bojio wasn't prepared. By the time she reacted, she had already knocked into his straight back. His light breath was mixed with the scent of the sun. It seemed to be able to seep into her. The only flaw was the slight pain on the tip of her nose. There wasn't enough oxygen. Chin-mo tilted his head and reached out to support her. His gaze was calm as he took the water prepared by the soldier beside him and placed it by the youngster's lips. Bojio drank 2 mouthfuls, her breathing stabilizing. Chin-mo asked, "Is there a point in following me?" "MMH, it's very interesting." Bojio smiled mischievously. Chin-mo glanced at the person in front of him, his tone faint. "I remember saying that you have 1 day to leave. Major General, I passed all the tests and have the right to stay." Bojio had already prepared her excuse. Chin-mo laughed, a little mocking. "Passed all the tests? You don't even know how to fold your blanket." Bojio. She was speechless, his words were too harsh. A few seconds of silence ensued. Chin-mo tilted his head, reaching out for the white towel. Then he pulled the youngster towards him. Bojio was still wondering what the Almighty was doing. The white towel touched her forehead. He was helping her wipe her sweat. Bojio lifted her face even higher and narrowed her eyes in enjoyment. Her face was so handsome and beautiful. Chin-mo regretted his actions. Why did he subconsciously pull this guy over to wipe her sweat? The first thing he saw was her face that was as black as coal. Even so, the side of her face was illuminated by the light. His lips, which were stained with water, seemed to be coated with a layer of gloss. It was hard for anyone to shift their gaze away after looking at it. Chin-mo's eyes deepened, and after a few seconds, he removed the white towel. Bojio realized that there was no one to wipe her sweat. She took 2 steps forward. "Go pack your things." Chin-mo didn't even turn his head. His voice was still calm as he said these few words to her. Bojio arched a brow, leaning to the side. "If I fold the blanket properly, I will pass the test. I won't pack my things." Chin-mo paused and looked over at her. His voice was indifferent. "Up to you." At this moment, the Almighty reminded her of when she had first met him. He wasn't moved by force or persuasion, and was hard to get close to. No matter what, he had to think of a way to stay here first. Bojio headed back to the dormitory. First, he spread out the quilt, then according to the steps in his memory, he began to press and shape it. It looked like a simple step. She also followed the instructions in the tutorial. In the end, it was still soft and floppy, not qualified at all. It was still a long way from becoming a piece of tofu. Bojio finally understood why some students felt that they shouldn't do anything during military training. It was a spirit. The quilt's requirements were indeed too high. Time passed little by little. The quilt on the bed was folded and unfolded. The whole dormitory was very quiet. Only the sound of the second hand turning could be heard. The sun had completely set in the west. Only the halos left behind could form a slender figure. The figure was lying on the ground with a spear resting on its shoulder. The muzzle of the spear was aimed at a certain point. When the shot was fired, it went straight for the bull's eye. 5 consecutive shots, each one within the 10-ring range. His shooting posture was perfect and smooth. It was as though he had become one with the surroundings. Even his breathing followed the direction of the spear. His face was handsome and elegant. Even though he was in the bushes, it didn't affect his unique aura. It was Qin Mo. The elite recruits from the various troops finally saw the legendary hidden shooting. With a single point of the spear, no one was around. For them, shooting accurately was not difficult at all. The most stunning part was the silent shooting and the unstoppable movements. Prince watched from the side. He retracted his gaze and looked at the Lamborghini not far away. It seemed like he didn't just have a background. A regiment commander had come to pick him up. It was enough to show his capabilities. That was what Prince was thinking before Qin Mo put on his military jacket. When he saw the man in front of him put on his military jacket and walk towards them, Prince was stunned by the tassel on his shoulder. That was a major general? So young? He was a major general. That wasn't possible. Prince found it unbelievable. In the military, one's ability depended on one's age. This person was too young. Unless he had completed a secret mission outside the borders and achieved great merits. Otherwise, it wasn't possible for him to be a major general. The 50 recruits were stunned by Qin Mo's performance. You weren't fast enough and the range of your movements was too large. You'll have to practice 50 more rounds today. After Qin Mo finished his sentence, Mo Chen looked at Qin Mo. Half of the recruits were out of energy. But here, obeying orders was the only requirement. It was impossible not to know that there was one less person in the team. Especially the comrades who had been working together for the past 2 days. Prince had asked his captain twice where Bojo had gone. During the break, he couldn't help but ask again. This time, it wasn't his captain who answered him. Instead, it was the faint and deep voice that rose behind him. It sounds like you care a lot about number 10. Prince paused. He hadn't expected his boss to speak to him. The one who controlled the entire troop. After witnessing the other party's shooting, Prince had already treated him as his own fighting spirit. He didn't notice the deep look in Qin Mo's eyes when he spoke. Prince saluted. Reporting, number 10 has been away from the team for a long time. I would like to know what happened. Failed internal affairs. Qin Mo buttoned the last button on his military jacket. The aura of abstinence assaulted his senses. Prince didn't know how to finish his sentence. But it was also because Bojo's actions were too eye-catching. Especially in this military exercise, he was too outstanding. She was so outstanding that it was hard not to notice her. When the senior official heard that there was such a recruit, he was called over by the ice-cold youngster, who was the most difficult to manipulate. After the meeting, he didn't even drink his tea. Instead, he asked someone to call Qin Mo. In the military, Qin Mo's etiquette was on point. The moment he saw someone, his first action was to salute. It was straightforward and clean. But even so, his aura couldn't lie. Some senior officials had also said that Qin Mo was probably the soldier who didn't look like a soldier the most. What's wrong with number 10? I heard that you talked to him alone? The senior official continued. No matter what the problem is, let me say this first. There are so many good seedlings this time. You didn't say a word and kicked half of them away. Now there are only a few of them left. Don't kick them away casually, especially number 10. Think of a way to keep him. Qin Mo didn't give a clear answer. We'll talk about it after he passes the internal affairs test. Isn't it just because he doesn't know how to fold his blanket? I heard the report before I came. It's nothing. You aren't required to fold your blankets during a mission. The senior official tried to persuade him. Even though the ice-cold youngster was his soldier, he had never listened to him in this aspect. Most importantly, the soldiers here. In the past, they were all troublemakers. Some of them came from powerful families and were thrown into a certain military unit. They were capable but weren't easy to discipline. Some of them were special talents with arrogance and weren't easy to tame. After these people met the ice-cold youngster, they were all very obedient. During the days when Chin Emo wasn't in the military, he was the one who was the most troubled. These people knew how to create trouble. Many people weren't willing to take over this mission, because of this reason. It was indeed good to gain merits, but once Chin Emo left, these rascals would be in a mess. Who could stand it? This rascal was indeed very vicious when it came to judging people. The people he picked rarely got into trouble. He just loved to let people go. Thinking up to this point, the senior official reminded Chin Emo, "I don't care about the others, but number 10 must stay with me." "I'll see." After Chin Emo said these 2 words, he stood up, straightened his military cap and saluted. The senior official was angry, but he couldn't do anything about it. He had said so much, but this rascal didn't even give him a definite answer. It seemed like it was useless for him to keep number 10. After dusk, the weather started to get gloomy. The training wasn't over yet. The aroma of the food in the canteen could be smelled from afar. After Chin Emo came out from the bureau chief's office, he paused for a moment and tilted his head to look at the exhausted recruits. 50 rounds of crawling forward shooting was never a joke. After practicing like this, some people just wanted to drink a big cup of hot water. Their stomachs would definitely be hungry. After all, it was time to eat. After taking a look, Chin Emo returned to his place. He started to analyze all the new members. But after he opened the information, there was no reply for a long time. The psychologist who came to deliver food to Chin Emo also realized this problem. He was more or less shocked. After all, no matter what happened, Boss never got stuck when analyzing people. After looking for a while, the psychologist was about to speak. Just then, Chin Mo's voice rang out casually. "I don't have any psychological problems. I can carry out missions anytime, if that's what you're here to ask." The psychologist choked. Every time he faced his boss, everything he learned seemed to be returned to the books. He thought for a moment and decided to change the topic to lower his boss's guard. "I heard there's a new recruit in our team. He wiped out an entire team alone and he's a technical soldier. Such a person is suitable for the operation team." "Boss, didn't you always say that Fatty's stamina couldn't keep up? Now that we have this recruit, since he can cross the jungle and is familiar with field operations, his stamina shouldn't be a problem. This is a good thing." After the psychologist finished speaking, he wanted to change the topic. Unexpectedly, Chin Emo had already stood up. He looked down at him with his tall and slender figure. "Don't waste your time thinking of a topic. The person you're talking about is in the elimination list." Psychologist. He understood that today wasn't a suitable day to talk to his boss. There were usually 3 types of situations with his boss. The first type was when he was indifferent no matter what he said. The second type was when he closed his eyes and listened to him. The third type was like the one he was facing now. It was a professional book review that dealt a huge blow to his confidence. However, if it was the third type, it meant that his boss's emotions were fluctuating. Did something happen in the past 2 days? The psychologist frowned. He couldn't figure it out. It wasn't his fault that he couldn't figure it out. No one else could tell who recruit number 10 was. However, now that his boss had left, he could only eat the food that the psychologist had brought. Bing, who was following behind Chin Emo, thought that young Master Chin didn't want to see the doctor and wanted to eat at the cafeteria. What he didn't expect was, the moment he came out, young Master Chin asked, "Where is she?" "Him." "Who?" The soldier thought for a while before realizing that young Master Chin was talking about that brave recruit. Reporting. Number 10 has been in the dorm the entire time and hasn't come out. Chin Mo's slender fingers paused for a moment before he walked in a certain direction. The soldier looked up. It was clearly in the direction of the recruit dormitories. He wanted to go with them. But it was obvious that young Master Chin didn't want him to follow. The soldier was well behaved and stood guard downstairs. He knew that the more talented young Master Chin met, the stricter he would be. But this time, it didn't seem to be the case. The soldier was puzzled, his brows knitted together, but he couldn't think of a reason. In the dormitory, Bojo was still struggling with the quilt on the bed. In the end, A glint flashed across her eyes. She smiled, looking especially handsome and mischievous. After almost a minute, she looked over. The quilt, which was hard to form, was placed at the corner of the bed. From the side, it looked even more formal than the wolf's fangs. The shape of a tofu block was the standard in the military. Bojio stuffed one hand into her pocket and took out her phone with the other. She was prepared to send a photo to the Almighty for verification. Kacha! The photo was just formed. The door was pushed open. Bojio didn't turn back. She thought it was her roommate. She lowered her head, preparing to send a message. The phone in her hands was snatched away. Bojio didn't need to look up. She knew who it was just by looking at the slender hands. She felt guilty for a moment. She glanced at the quilt on the bed and turned, a confused smile on her face. Reporting, "I know how to fold the quilt." "Is that so?" Chinemo arched a brow. He walked towards the bed, his gaze landing on the angular, square-shaped quilt. Then he bent his waist slightly. There wasn't a single crease on his uniform. From this position, his face was extremely handsome. Bojio wanted to look a little longer. Chinemo pulled with one hand. The quilt was instantly torn apart. The small branches inside were scattered on the bed. But Chinemo was cunning. He acted as though he didn't see the branches. He said faintly, "Fold one for me to see." Chapter 1143. Bojio was starting to feel a little frustrated. But Chinemo just stood there, his long legs crossed and his back leaning against the bed frame. His eyes looked like high-quality amber under the light. He was obviously waiting for her to make a move. Bojio accepted her fate. She rolled up her sleeves and walked over. "Sir, I would like to know where I exposed myself." Her disguise skills weren't bad. The quilt wouldn't be seen through immediately. Chinemo swept her a glance, a faint smile on his face. "You aren't the only soldier I have." This meant that the people the Almighty had brought had many tricks up their sleeves. "Your work is indeed exquisite. At least you didn't use something like a mineral water bottle that can be seen at a glance." When Chinemo said this, he tilted his head and lit a cigarette, looking at her just like that. Bojio didn't feel that it was a compliment. Anyway, she had been exposed. She had never felt so awkward before. Since she was folding it on the spot, Bojio decided to return to her original self. Her movements were swift. One fold, another fold, and another fold. She didn't care if the quilt was formed. Her posture was handsome, the sound of the wind when she lifted the quilt. In the end, the quilt was pushed into a ball. But it was only pushed into a ball. Chinemo tapped his fingers on it, saying slowly, "Is this what you mean by you know how to fold the quilt? Ordinary people do it this way." Bojio wasn't unable to take care of herself. She just hadn't been exposed to military life and knew how to fold tofu. No one was perfect. Chinemo retracted his hand, his expression unchanged. "This is the military." 5 words. Bojio paused. Then she removed the quilt. This time, when she lowered her head, she was much more serious than before. Even her brows were furrowed. She used her fingers to look at her handsome face. It was a stark contrast to how obedient she was. This scene was strangely familiar to Chinemo. However, compared to these, his gaze was more focused on that person's furry head. When he hadn't seen her, he had assumed she had left. She couldn't even analyze the recruits. Hence, her presence would only distract him. Bojio was folding the quilt seriously. She didn't notice Chinmo's expression. Just as she was about to fold the quilt in one piece, suddenly his left hand was pressed down. Then the familiar minty tobacco fragrance drifted over from behind. It was so light and cold that it could easily make one's heart tighten. "Who taught you to do this?" Chinemo tilted his head, speaking into her ears. "Line up the lines." That posture. From the side, it looked as though he was hugging her. The two of them were very close to each other. He was so close that Bojio smiled when she saw his handsome face. When he was young, he had taught him how to fold things. But at that time, he was folding dumplings. Bojio had always felt that making dumplings was just stacking dumplings. Her whole face was a mess, but she still couldn't learn it. It seemed that she was really not very good at handicrafts. Bojio tilted her head, glancing at his side profile. Because of the light, the bridge of his nose and chin were so white that they seemed to glow. How did she learn to fold her blanket when he was so handsome? She only cared about looking at him. It was the same when she made dumplings when she was young. Chapter 1144. All of a sudden, she made a move. Unknowingly, her lips touched the Almighty's face. Bojio stilled at the smooth and cool touch. Chinemo probably hadn't expected this to happen either. His bent back froze in place. In that instant, the air seemed to have frozen. Her heart started to beat faster. Bojio hadn't even gotten the taste yet. Chinemo had already turned his face over, his eyes as beautiful as the night sky, shining with the reflection of the night. You did it on purpose, didn't you? Bojio felt the need to explain. I accidentally touched it. Chinmo's right hand was still pressed against the blanket, his expression nonchalant. Accidentally? Why did you touch it for so long? He exposed her without hesitation. Wasn't she just taking advantage of him for a little longer? Bojio smiled. Since I touched it, I took the opportunity to touch it a little longer. Is that so? Chinemo straightened, his gaze probing. The moment she heard the word, she knew the Almighty didn't believe her. She felt wronged, they had indeed touched it. If she really wanted to kiss him, she wouldn't have just touched him, it was two. Before Bojio could finish her sentence, Chinemo, dressed in his military uniform, lowered his head and kissed her lips forcefully. Bojio stilled, her fingers still tugging on the blanket, forgetting to move. Bojio stilled, her fingers still tugging on the blanket, forgetting to move. The familiar minty tobacco scent, clear and fragrant, seeping into the tip of her tongue. Her heart wasn't at peace for a moment. As the kiss deepened, an inescapable numbness spread. It was densely packed and gentle, but it was also very powerful. Bojio tightened her grip on the blanket. The numbness seemed to be connected to her heart, the lack of oxygen causing her brain to go blank. Outside the window, the moon had just risen. Chinemo pressed the blanket between them with one hand, the other holding onto the back of her head. The softness and sweetness made it hard for him to let go. This was what he wanted to do the most after seeing her. But Chinemo didn't forget that they were in the military. The military meant that there were people everywhere. But this person kept moving around in front of him. At the end of the kiss, Chinemo couldn't help biting down harder. Instantly, Bojio's pupils tensed. Her eyes lit up, her breathing unstable. The Almighty was just like those little secretaries in novels. When he wasn't willing to kiss, he would bite. However, the smart Bojio wouldn't say this out loud. After all, her pet had always been arrogant since young. If he knew that she had made him her little secretary, it wouldn't be good. Bojio licked her lips, a smile on her face. Sweet, now I have the motivation to fold the blanket. Continue to stack. Chinemo pushed the person away with one hand. On the surface, he looked cold and abstinent. Upon closer inspection, when his eyes landed on the youngster's petal-like thin lips, they deepened. You still have 10 minutes. Bojio arched a brow. 10 minutes. That was such a short time. Did she kiss him for nothing? If you can't learn it in 10 minutes, I'll throw you out of the army. Chinemo pinched the person's face, a cold smile on his face. Don't think that just a kiss is enough. Anyone who doesn't pass the test will be kicked out. Bojio puffed up her left cheek, looking like an energetic youngster. 10 minutes isn't enough. Chapter 1145. She had no choice but to follow the Almighty's instructions. Even the mischievous Bojio had no choice but to follow the Almighty's instructions seriously. The advantage of this kind of one-on-one tutorial was that the students could clearly see the strength and alignment of the folded quilt like a tofu cube. The disadvantage was, are you stupid? Bojio couldn't be bothered to count how many times she had been scolded. It was exactly the same as when the Almighty had tutored her in physics. Speaking of which, ever since she was young, the Almighty had always scolded her. She didn't know how to change the words. Just as Bojio was about to fold the quilt for the 10th time, Chinemo pulled her wrist. He grabbed her wrist. That's enough. Bojio broke into a smile, slightly surprised. That's it. I meant that the time is done. Chin Mo raised his other hand, tilting his wrist to show her the time on his phone. Bojio glanced at it before reaching for the phone. She adjusted the time by 5 minutes. It's not time yet. Are you trying to rebel? Chin Mo raised his hand and pulled her out. Little Bojio, when did you become such a rascal? Bojio replied righteously. I've always been a rascal, but it's more obvious now. Once they were out, they would probably be thrown away. Staying in the dormitory was the safest. Chin Mo glanced at the person who was holding onto the bed frame with a smile on her face. He let go of her wrist, arching a brow. I'll give you 1 second to let go. His aura was indeed strong. Fortunately, Bojio had a strong sense of resistance. She didn't let go. Instead, she used the force to pull Chin Mo back. With a nimble turn, she pressed him onto the freshly folded quilt. Chin Mo's gaze deepened. Even though he was below her, his aura was on full display. Bojio felt a little guilty. But even though she felt guilty, she still had to show her dominance at this moment. Little Blackie told me about what happened that day. I thought you wanted to leave, which was why I changed the password. Besides, Brother Mo had a small communication device with you. I thought you were trying to collect evidence of my crimes, and wanted to arrest me. I was upset for a long time. Since Brother Mo is willing to help me, I don't have to worry about small details like folding the blankets. Chin Mo's brows furrowed slightly as she looked at Mo Jingshan. Brother Mo, don't worry. So you still remember the kidnapping incident? Chin Mo was cold and noble. His voice was slow. Sugar Daddy. Bojio felt that if the Almighty called her by her code name, it would only add to her dark history. What do you think I care about? Chin Mo looked at her, his military uniform spotless. You messed up someone's life and left just like that. Have you never thought about what would happen if someone couldn't find you? Chin Mo's voice was indifferent, as though he was stating a fact. But it was so easy for him to stir up all the guilt in her heart. I won't leave this time. I definitely won't leave. Bojio's eyes were bright and dark. Chin Mo replied faintly. You aren't qualified. You can't stay just because you say so. Also, don't try to seduce me. Bojio muttered. You're the one who seduced me. Mh, Chin Mo replied. He wanted to pinch that soft face again. But at this moment, the wooden door was pushed open from the outside. Chapter 1146. Silence. It wasn't a normal silence. Both of them were petrified rapidly. It wasn't Chin Mo and Bojio who were petrified. Prince and Bojio were petrified as they witnessed the scene. They looked as though it was the end of the world. Anyone would be exhausted after a day of training. But now, their bodies were invigorated. Prince looked at the tall and domineering figure under the lights. He was dressed in his military uniform, looking elegant and elegant. He was being pinned down by his good roommate. That position and the black-haired fellow's face. Prince turned around, exchanging glances with Wolf. Prince's thoughts were the most complicated. F***ck. What exactly was going on? The black-haired fellow's actions were probably too offensive. Even their major general couldn't stand it and wanted to punish him. But this scene. Why was the black-haired fellow forcing himself on the head coach? It was a mess. Prince felt that even with all his experience, it wasn't enough to explain the current situation. Black-haired fellow, do you really not have any backing? How dare you treat the major general like this without any backing? Do you know his nickname in the military? The Smiling Devil. Black-haired fellow, you're finished. Compared to the Crown Prince's many thoughts, Wolf's eyes were filled with shock and surprise. With his boss's skills, if he wasn't willing, no one would be able to hold him down. But the scene in front of him, Wolf, who had the calmest personality, couldn't help but overthink. Bojio didn't expect anyone to enter, so she didn't move. Chin Mo raised his eyelids. Aren't you going to get up? This sentence basically confirmed Bojio's crime. Prince's mouth was agape. He looked at Bojio with a gaze full of words. Bojio returned his gaze. It wasn't what you think. You dragged the general onto the bed. Isn't it what I think? Prince glared at her. Bojio raised her eyebrows. Healthy thoughts. Prince replied with his gaze. My thoughts are healthy. The main problem is, have you thought about the consequences of pressing on the Major General? Bojo wanted to return his gaze. Chinemo had already straightened. He reached out to tidy his sleeves that were wrinkled by the youngster. His voice was calm. How long are you going to keep flirting? Bojo, Prince. Flirting? Them? Definitely not. Come out. When Chinemo walked to the door, he threw another word over. He stuffed one hand into his military pants and turned his face, looking extremely indifferent. It was obvious who this word was directed at. Bojo knew that it wouldn't be the same if she didn't follow him out. Prince felt that this person was most likely dead, and was hesitating if he should bid farewell to his comrade. Chinmo's gaze landed on him. That one glance sent chills down his spine, and he silently shrank back. Under the moonlight, the fog rose. The light in the army was not weak. Even at this time, many people were still outside. Chinemo walked forward. Bojo followed behind. After the soldiers stationed in the command center saw this scene, they couldn't help but look over. He thought to himself that this recruit was really tenacious. He was already in this state and still dared to continue following young Master Chin. However, this was not what puzzled the recruits. Chapter 1147. On this day, everyone in the operation team felt that something wasn't right with Wolf. The main thing was that he shouldn't be here at this hour. Yet he sat in front of them with a stern expression. They couldn't even swallow their food. As for why? No one would be able to eat with a sniper staring at them, right? Wolf, what exactly is going on? Can't you just say it? Hunter was the first to break down because Wolf had looked at him more than 10 times. He was really going against the trend recently. Wolf Fong finally opened his mouth. However, he threw out a bomb that was even more shocking than his gaze. Just now, someone had pressed the boss under their body. Before he could finish his sentence, Magician dropped his chopsticks. Magician dropped the chopsticks in his hand in disbelief. Hunter stood up and asked, "Who is that?" The flames of gossip ignited the entire operation team. Wolf was still solemn. Recruit number 10. Hunter had an incredulous expression on his face. Magician wanted to know what happened next. Then what did he do to boss? Wolf frowned. What could he do? Magician was stumped by this question. But very quickly, Wolf threw out another bomb. Indeed, he seemed to want to do something to boss. With this, everyone in the operation team exchanged glances. News. This was something that had never happened in the military for a long time. He dared to lay his hands on boss. This recruit was probably crippled. But as they were familiar with Chinemo, they quickly realized that something wasn't right. Boss allowed that recruit to press him? MH. How is that possible? There must be something wrong here. Boss knows this person? Hunter. Why? Go and ask around. Why should I be the one asking around? Why aren't you guys going? That's your recruit. If you don't go, who else would? Hunter cursed. F***CK. His frustration could be seen. Ever since he had taken in a recruit, he had been slapped in the face. Now he was asked to find out the relationship between the recruit and boss? According to boss's personality, anyone who tried to find out would be in trouble. If there was no relationship, he would definitely be the one who would be destroyed. If there was a relationship, it shouldn't be. How would boss be related to a recruit? But how was he going to explain the fact that boss had been suppressed? No one could figure it out. In less than 20 minutes, Yi Zichen and Yi Zichen finally arrived. The big devil, Major General Chin, was pressed under a new recruit. The news spread from the dormitory to the action team, and from the action team back to the dormitory. In the end, it reached the ears of the old chief who was drinking tea. What did you say? The old general felt that he needed some time to digest this. The aide-de-camp had tried his best to gather information, but he could only dispel some of it at this time. It could also be a rumor. Who dares to spread rumors about that icy brat? The old general kept thinking about the recruits with good potential. The rumors are still like this. I'm afraid this is another one of his ways of kicking people out. The adjutant said hesitantly. I don't think so. Kicking someone away, by letting someone press him down? You think it's impossible? That kid would do anything just to kick people. Or do you think he's really a living Buddha who can deliver all living beings from suffering just because he's good-looking? The old chief put down the teacup. This time, the adjutant stood on the chief's side. After all, young Master Qin had never been a good person. He still remembered the first time he had met young Master Qin. He had been such a pure and noble person, as though he had a Buddhist incense around him. It had been easy to let down one's guard. At that time, he had still been young, but many people in the military had been scratching their heads. Indeed, perhaps young Master Qin had intentionally made the recruit offend him in order to kick him out? But was it necessary? The old general felt the need to have a chat with that icy brat. He didn't care about anything else, but the new technical soldier had to stay. At this moment, Bojiu still wasn't aware that her feat was known by the entire military unit. She was still thinking about how to get past the stage of folding the blanket. Qin Emo, who had already pushed open the door and entered the room, spoke again. Didn't anyone tell you that this place only accepts male soldiers and not female soldiers? Bojiu was still feeling guilty. Missions don't discriminate between men and women. Besides, the action team doesn't have a technical soldier right now. I'm just here to fill in the gap. Qin Emo turned, his voice calm. You have a lot of excuses. Come over. He allowed her to go over again. What was he doing this time? Bojiu was still on her guard. But the moment she got close to the Almighty, her face was being pinched. Do you know your mistake? Bojiu nodded. With the Almighty's gaze, if she didn't admit her mistake, he might really throw her out of the window. What did I do wrong? Bojiu was very smart. Whatever you say is wrong. Qin Emo chuckled. His white-gloved fingers pinched Bojiu again. His tone was cold. I seem to have said it before. If I see you living with a bunch of men again, I'll crush your claws. Have you forgotten? Bojiu smiled. The military unit stays together. I can't possibly camp in the wilderness. Bojiu's words were logical. She knew that the arrogant Almighty would only go so far. He wouldn't really break her claws. Her threat was automatically filtered into sweetness. When she was with the Almighty, she had to think more. Qin Mo's gaze swept past the hand that was stirring up trouble on his body. He moved it away coldly. Tonight you will sleep here. Bojiu smiled. All right. If she could sleep the first night, she could sleep the second. She would follow this plan. Qin Emo watched as a certain someone looked as though she had taken advantage of him. He arched a brow. Hand, go back. I'm afraid you're cold, she replied seriously. Qin Emo smirked. The temperature inside is 27 degrees Celsius. You should find a better excuse. All right. Bojiu felt a tinge of regret when she said that. But it didn't matter. Since she was going to hug the Almighty to sleep today, it wouldn't be a problem for her to take advantage of him. She had thought that they could be alone for a while. After a few minutes, someone knocked on the door. Come in. The Almighty seemed to ignore her when he said that. Bojiu stood at the side in her camouflage uniform. Her trousers were rolled up, showing signs of training. Compared to the Almighty's aura, she looked like an ancient servant who would serve tea and grind ink for the crown prince. She hadn't even come to warm the bed. What a pity. Bojiu pouted her lips. The soldier brought 2 bowls of rice in. One was filled with potatoes and beef while the other was filled with scrambled eggs with tomatoes. There were also 4 big buns. It was obvious that both of them had the same appetite. The soldier was shocked when he took the food. Young Master Qin had obviously ordered the newbie's food as well. Should he inform the doctor? After all, young Master Qin's actions today weren't logical. Bojiu's gaze didn't leave the 2 bowls after she saw them. Qin Emo placed the pen in his hand down and glanced at her. Go wash your hands. The soldier trembled when he heard that. This person wasn't related to young Master Qin, was he? He didn't dare to eavesdrop. He placed the food down and closed the door. Bojiu felt that her hands were clean enough, but she still couldn't escape the Almighty's discipline. Hand sanitizer. She reached her hands back and applied the sanitizer before washing the other side. Finally, she could eat. The buns in the military were made of real materials. They were big and white and filled with the fragrance of wheat. Bojiu was especially obedient when she ate. She didn't molest Chin Mo. Instead, she sat there and took a bite of the bun, her cheeks puffed up. Chin Mo sat down as well. When he saw that the person in front of him only knew how to eat the bun, and didn't even take any food, his bamboo chopsticks touched her subconsciously. Bojo opened her mouth, chewing on the fragrant potato. She wasn't polite at all. Chin Mo raised a brow, but didn't continue with his harsh words. As Bojo ate, she suddenly remembered something. It was very important. Brother Mo, next time someone sends you food, don't shower. It was fine if she saw it. But if someone saw it? No way. Chin Mo placed the bamboo chopsticks in his hand down. He glanced at the youngster who was still biting on the bun. He didn't reply to her. Instead, he asked slowly, "Are you the soldier who brought me food in the afternoon? The one who took his time and kept glancing at me, refusing to leave?" Bojo paused. The trap left by his words was completely burying her. "Immersing, it's me." Bojo glanced up, her words reasonable. "I was tempted by Brother Mo's figure. That's why Brother Mo, when someone sends you food, don't shower." Chin Mo watched her righteous words and her puffed up cheeks. His hands itched again. He reached out and pinched her cheeks, his thin lips asking, "You don't want others to see me?" MMH. Bojo never hid her possessiveness. Chin Mo's voice was calm. "It's hard to avoid in the military." Bojo thought about it and lowered her head to take another bite of the bun. Her cheeks were still being pinched. "Don't worry, there aren't many hooligans like you in the military." Chin Mo released his hand. Bojo's face was finally free, but it wasn't a compliment. "Clean up after you're done." Chin Mo stood up. There was still a distance between them, making it hard for her to read his intentions. Bojo bit the bun, her voice a little muffled. "What about you? Where are you going?" He couldn't possibly call her over and leave her alone, right? That would be a waste. "Shower." With that, Chin Mo walked into the bathroom. If it hadn't been for a certain someone, Chin Mo would have been done with his shower. Showering after every training session was something Captain Chin had to do. When Bojo heard the word shower, her mind started to wander. On second thought, it wasn't bad coming to the military since she could spy on beauties. After finishing the last bite of the bun, Bojo coolly ignored the 2 rice bowls on the table. Since she had finished eating, it wouldn't be too late to shower after she was done admiring the Almighty's bathing scene. He was a major general after all. There was a fridge in Chin Mo's room. Usually, there would only be water in it. At most, there would be 3 cans of beer. In the military, this was strictly controlled. Bojo opened the fridge and took out a bottle of water. She wanted to use this as an excuse to look at him openly. Who knew that the Almighty would shower so quickly? He used cold water and there wasn't any heat at all. When he came out, his black hair was wet, making his extremely dark eyes seem deeper. "Why are you standing here?" Chin Mo asked, stepping out of the bathroom. Bojo hadn't even executed her plan when she was blinded by the scene in front of her. All she could see was a pair of military pants, water droplets on his upper body. From his neck to his collarbone, from his collarbone to his abs, and finally, the long pants below his abs. Bojo watched until she didn't dare to continue. The Almighty without his military uniform was more than 10 times more dangerous than when he was in uniform. "Does it feel good?" Chin Mo reached out, pressing the person who was staring at him with a pair of clear eyes on the spot. Behind Bojo was the fridge. It wasn't a big deal, but the smell of a shower rushed into her face. It was clean and refreshing. "It's all right." Bojo hugged Chin Mo's waist, her face serious. "If only I could hug you again." Chin Mo frowned and pulled the 2 hands away. Then he bent the Gundam's body and looked at her. "If you dare to touch me again without my permission, I'll throw you out if you try." Bojo didn't move. After all, it wasn't worth it to be eliminated just to take advantage of him. Chin Mo glanced to the side and tossed the youngster's unwashed bowl into the sink. His slender and fair hands brushed across the edge of the stainless steel, giving off a feeling of wasting God's gifts. "I'll do it." Bojo walked over, pressing the bowl down and pouring a lot of dishwashing detergent in. Chin Mo arched a brow, wiping his hands. He thought he could ignore her. Who knew that a certain someone's method of washing dishes was to stretch out a finger and spin it around in the water, while pressing on the rice bowl. Are you stupid? Chinemo couldn't stand it anymore. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, pressing her hand down, his thin lips cold. Bojio felt her back heating up. When she snapped back to her senses, she remembered that the Almighty was still naked. His heartbeat sped up a little. He was holding her hands. It always seemed as though he would be able to snatch the throne of the Almighty, even if he entered the blood pool alone. When he wore his military uniform, with a sweep of his rifle, no one dared to come within 800 meters. Now that the water flowed past, his hands were holding hers, rubbing against the edge of the bowl. It was numb, reminding her of the strength he had used to knead her with his hands. Bojio's ears burned. That was why the Almighty shouldn't shower. If he did, wouldn't it be the same as letting her sleep with him? It was a trap. It was too deep. What inappropriate scenes are you thinking about again? He tilted his head, the water droplets falling from his black hair landing on her shoulder. His brows were handsome, and it was convenient for them to be in such a position. He lowered his voice beside her ear, looking elegant and seductive. Bojio replied calmly, "No, I'm washing the dishes seriously." Chapter 1148. I'm thinking about how to sleep with you. The words rolled in Bojio's throat, but in the end, she didn't say it. If she said it, the Almighty would probably throw her out. They hadn't shared a bed yet. She couldn't be anxious. She had to keep a low profile. Bojio suppressed her thoughts, but she couldn't. She reached out and pulled the towel over. With a flip of her hand, she changed their positions. Her face was still hot. She said directly, I'm thinking about how to sleep with you. Are you going to let me sleep with you? In this position, Bojio pressed one hand on Chinmo's chest while the other hand hung down. Water was still dripping from her fingertips. Chinmo didn't move, allowing her to press him. Perhaps it was because he had just showered, but his extremely black hair was unruly. His eyes were deep and his thin lips were moist and glossy. The color was light, soft and abstinent. It really made one's heart itch. She wanted to take action. Bojio could hear her own heartbeat. One after another. The tip of her nose was filled with his scent. There was a faint smell of smoke. Mixed with his scent, it was a mint-like cold Buddhist scent. It was tempting. Bojio was about to pinch his chin and kiss him. She didn't care if he would be thrown out. She wanted to stamp it anyway. Chinmo didn't reject her. Even though his gaze was faint, when he touched the youngster in his arms, there was something else. Bojio was about to kiss him as she wished. Suddenly, a voice rang beside her ear. Reporting. F***CK, who was shouting for a report at this time. She was disturbing her family. Bojio's eyes were filled with annoyance. It made her face look even more handsome. In reality, no matter how obedient she was in front of Chinmo, Bojio was still Bojio. The Z that walked out from the darkness. If she wasn't careful, she would reveal her true nature. Her extremely dark eyes were like a sharp sword, cold and sharp. When she glanced over, she saw someone enter. The person who entered. I must have entered the wrong room. Yes, I must have entered the wrong room. Hunter muttered to himself. He wanted to close the door and enter again. But F***CK, he entered the wrong room. In this place, other than the machine guns, Boss was the only one living here. As a member of the People's Liberation Army, he had to be calm and learn to face the impossible. Even if a recruit pressed down on their boss and said, I'm thinking about how to sleep with you. Will you let me sleep with you? He could not be a deserter. Reporting boss. As Hunter raised his voice, he turned to look at his leader once more. He wanted to see his leader's reaction. Since he was going to die no matter what, he might as well watch a little more and let his team members gossip when he got back. It was a pity. He didn't see anything. Not only was there not a trace of panic on the young master's face, he even stretched out his hand and pushed the young man away. His eyes grew even colder. Speak. When Boss wasn't wearing his shirt, his aura was too strong. It was so hard. How did the recruit bite through it? Wait a minute. He came in to say something. The hunter looked back at the door. Those bastards who encouraged him to come and didn't even go upstairs. They were all hiding downstairs. F***CK. Boss, What do you plan to do with soldier number 10? The louder the hunter's voice, the more his heart trembled. Don't be fooled by his boss's current state. He would definitely settle the score with him in the future. Why did he have to come in now and see this kind of scene? Chapter 1149. Just kicking him away? Boss, someone was plotting against you just now. But he just kicked him away and didn't cut him up. Hunter thought about himself. If he had spoken to his boss like that, he wouldn't have survived. Hence, there was still a situation. Hunter stood there motionlessly. Mo walked over. The action of taking out a bottle of mineral water was enough to release his aura. Why? Do you have a better idea? Hunter touched his feet. Reporting no. Why did you come in if you didn't? Mo lowered his voice. His tone was a little cold, and there was a hint of solemnity in it. Hunter didn't know how he had offended his boss. He shut his eyes. It's the old general. He wants you to keep him no matter what. He said he's the best technical soldier and many troops are fighting for him. Bojio smiled. The old general has good taste. I'm not only skilled, I'm also handsome. Hunter. At this moment, you shouldn't speak. How can you praise yourself like that? Captain will make you reflect on yourself. You know? As expected, Mo glanced over and pointed at her. His voice was calm. You go to the corner. Bojio didn't retort. She stuffed a hand into her pocket and walked to the wall. Mo spoke again, his voice lazy and magnetic. Face the wall. Bojio turned and looked at the white wall. Her head was almost touching it. It was boring not being able to see the Almighty's gaze. She could only kick the wall with her toes. It felt as though she was being punished. In school, it was frog jumping. Now that she was in the military, she was being punished by the Almighty. These days, the water was hot and the water was hot. Mo watched as a certain someone wasn't being obedient. He tilted his head up and drank a mouthful of water. Hunter wanted to use this chance to slip away. He had a huge pile of gossip that he couldn't wait to tell his team members. He had to tell them. He couldn't be the only one who knew such a secret that could silence a witness. But the moment he lifted his leg. Where are you going? It was his boss's voice. It was slow, so slow it was cold. Hunter touched his heels again. Reporting, the old general is waiting for my reply. Report, I'm going to run 10 kilometers with weights. Mo put on his shirt casually. Hunter's face fell. He was on the verge of tears. Boss, Mo arched a brow. 15 kilometers. The hunter immediately stopped bargaining. He raised his head and closed his eyes. Yes. What had he done to deserve this? After Hunter closed the door, only the two of them were left in the room. Now Bojio wasn't lethal anymore. She was dressed in her military uniform, facing the wall. One of her trousers was rolled up to her knee, revealing her fair and slender calf, glowing like jade. Just because he didn't have any lethality didn't mean that he would be safe. He kicked his leg again. Brother Mo, please continue to teach me how to fold the quilt. Standing like this is a waste of time. There are only 11 hours left until the housekeeping inspection tomorrow. With that, Bojio wanted to turn back. Mo walked over. Turn around and stand for 10 more minutes. Brother Mo, you can't punish me like a child. Bojio suggested seriously. You can punish me by kissing you. Mo reached out and lifted the man's chin. He smiled coldly. Poor thing, you're dreaming again. Chapter 1150. You have to follow the rules in the military, do you understand? Mo moved his hand away, his gaze landing on her neck unconsciously. The room was well lit. When she lowered her head, the back of her neck was exposed. It was so soft that it was a little eye-catching. His porcelain white skin glowed, probably because of his aura. In that instant, it became extremely beautiful. Mo turned, averting his gaze. He walked out of the room. Bojio arched a brow. She still didn't understand what was going on. But the person on the other side was gone. After leaving the room, Mo was blown by the cold wind, regaining his senses. The person in the room probably didn't understand. He couldn't control himself when he faced her. He didn't know what he would do. He even had the urge to destroy her completely. Yet she kept sending herself into his mouth. Bojo was still standing at the corner. When she saw that the Almighty didn't seem to have any intention of returning, she turned and leaned back on the single bed in the room. The scent of mint and tobacco was very obvious. Even the pillow was filled with his scent. Bojo buried her face in it. The Almighty was really hard to woo. She had finally managed to woo him the last time. This time she had to try again. The worst part was that the Almighty was extremely guarded. He didn't even give her a chance to flirt. It was a little difficult. She couldn't send flowers in the military. That would be too high profile. The Almighty didn't like high-profile things. Bojo lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling. There wasn't much time left. She had to woo him as soon as possible. With that in mind, Bojo tilted her head and changed her position. Her eyes landed under the office table. There was a keyboard there. Bojo was familiar with that keyboard. It was the one they had used to train their hand speed in the club. It wasn't just the Almighty and her. It was the same for every member of Supreme Alliance. Even here, they had brought the keyboard along. Actually, in your heart, you still like esports the most, right? Not as a descendant of the Qin family. Just as Qinemo. With that in mind, Bojo sat up and whipped out her phone. She opened the SIM card she had been using for the past few days, and dialed a string of numbers. Bojo arched a brow when he didn't pick up. When the screen lit up for the third time, he placed the phone by his ear. Little Spade, F*CKU. Why did you disappear? You went overseas to film a movie and you disappeared. What's wrong with you? F*CK. I thought you broke down after reading the comments online. Let me tell you. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. Do you care about gender in esports? Hurry up and come back. If you don't, I'll block you. Bojo replied calmly. Do you have a cold? My throat is a little hoarse. When dealing with the naive Linda, she knew how to change the topic. Lin Feng sneezed. It was very tiring to pretend to be deep in thought. He raised his hand and glanced at his watch. The closer it was to the time, the hotter his chest was. The last time was finally here. Lin Feng stood up instantly. Suddenly, he remembered that he needed time to get off the plane. He could only pretend as if nothing had happened and sit back down. These 2 days, because of Spadesy's identity, Supreme Alliance was being watched very closely. Hence, Lin Feng knew that after coming out, he wouldn't be an individual anymore. He would be representing Supreme Alliance. He pretended to be solemn and calm, trying to keep a low profile. Under normal circumstances, the number of fans would increase. Lin Feng rubbed his wrist, wanting to shift to another spot. Chapter 1151. Lin Feng's hand was still tugging on his collar, pulling it upwards to make himself more comfortable since his nose was stuffed. But before he could react, the person's voice rang out. The man's voice rang out. Are you feeling unwell? Then, she stretched out her hand and placed it on his forehead. Her fingertips were still cold. Lin Feng could only hear that indescribable restlessness becoming more obvious. For a moment he forgot to move. His heart was pounding in his chest. Oh no, he must be having a fever. The fans who recognized Lin Feng widened their eyes even more. They didn't expect to see such a scene while they were just taking a plane. Both of them were handsome and had the same tall and straight figure. The man in the pure white sweater stretched out his hand and placed it on Godlin's head. When he looked up, the feeling he gave off was exactly the same as when he was in the arena. He was handsome and deep, intoxicating. Almighty, Almighty Yin. It's Almighty Yin. Two of the girls couldn't help but cover their lips with their hands. Their eyes were filled with excitement. Almighty Yin was back. Yin Hu glanced down, one hand on the handle of his luggage. He knew that it wasn't a suitable place to chat in the airport. It's a little hot, can you still get up? He frowned, probably not expecting the person who had come to fetch him to be in such a state. Ah! Lin Feng exclaimed. If I can get up, why can't I? It's just a little cold, I'm not afraid of a cold. With that, he straightened his legs and jumped up from his seat, his nasal voice sounding muffled as he reached for Yinhu's luggage. Yinhu arched a brow. What? Lin Feng replied. I'll help you carry it. You've caught a cold, look ahead and walk. F***CK, are you looking down on me? You've caught a cold and it's affecting my luggage? I don't dare, loser. You can't even speak properly. Let's go to the hospital first. Lin Feng's voice started to turn weak. Hospital? Why are we going there? Yinhu replied slowly. Your face paled at the mention of the hospital. Lin Feng, are you that afraid of injections? Lin Feng tugged at his collar, his hair standing on end. F***CK, who's afraid? I'm a man. Why would I be afraid of injections? What a joke. Let's go then. Yinhu's expression didn't change. Lin Feng started to find excuses. Go away? My mom and your mom are waiting for you to come home for dinner. They also told me that if I don't pick you up, I'll punish you. Yinhu glanced at him but didn't say a word. Then he opened WeChat and sent a voice message. Auntie, I've arrived. Lin Feng isn't feeling well. I'll bring him to the hospital first. You don't have to wait for me, eat first. Lin Feng's eyes widened. He hadn't expected this guy to do this. Very soon, there was a reply from the other side. Ahuzi, I'm so sorry. This brat can also get himself sick while picking up someone. You guys go ahead, don't worry. Did you hear that? Yinhu tilted his head. Lin Feng was helpless. It wasn't the first time that his mother had disliked him. He always felt that Hu Zi was his mother's biological son. Give me the car keys. Yinhu pulled his luggage out of the automatic door. Lin Feng was still confused. What? What else can I do? Can you drive in this state? Yinhu saw that he wasn't moving. He took out a bunch of keys from Lin Feng's pocket. Lin Feng coughed. F***CK robber. Yinhu didn't say anything else. After placing his luggage down, he used his hand to touch Lin Feng's forehead. Both of them were handsome and had long legs. Standing in front of the Land Rover, coupled with their posture, many people had already started to look in their direction. Lin Feng took a step back. F***CK, are you done? I'm not that weak. Even if he wanted to touch his forehead, couldn't he do it after entering the car? No F***CK. He couldn't even touch his forehead after entering the car. He was so strong and majestic. He didn't look like a little flower that needed to be protected. What a pain. It was probably because his nose was a little blocked. After entering the car, he felt that his breathing wasn't smooth. If he stretched out his leg, he would be able to touch that person's. F***CK, when did this car become so narrow? Lin Feng pulled at his collar again, half of his face buried in it. After being touched, Yinhu turned to look at the person beside him. Even though he knew that he wasn't feeling well, he couldn't help but smile. According to his personality, it wasn't easy for him to come and fetch him, as long as he didn't continue to hide from him. Yinhu placed both hands on the steering wheel. Suddenly he said slowly, that day at the airport. F***CK, I didn't cry. Lin Feng interrupted immediately. He sat up straight, his face suspiciously red. Yinhu's lips curved. Oh. F***CK you're laughing. How humiliating. Lin Feng lay back down. His Empress Dowager had caused him so much trouble. But this guy finally came back. Lin Feng tilted his head. His eyelids were heavy, probably because of the cold. The car drove steadily. At this hour, there would definitely be a traffic jam on the road from the airport to the city center. Time seemed to drag on endlessly. When Yinhu tilted his head, he saw that person curled up with his long legs. He wore a black hooded jacket, which only accentuated his handsome face. The tip of his nose was still red, and his eyelashes were slightly long. With this look, he would be the team beauty every year. Still afraid that he would be cold, he adjusted the air conditioner to the most comfortable temperature and controlled the speed of the car well. Suddenly the phone rang. Lin Feng was taking a short break, so he wasn't in a deep sleep. When he heard the voice, he opened his eyes. He watched as Yinhu picked up the phone and said something to the person on the other end. His eyes were still filled with tenderness. People with boyfriends were indeed different. Lin Feng tilted his head at this thought. His face was reflected on the car window. His lips curved, but his heart didn't beat as fast as before. It sank a little. It was probably because his nose was blocked. Sometimes this was the benefit of being a man. He didn't have to think through everything, even if he knew clearly. This time, Yinhu came back for the Supreme Alliance. As for the rest, he probably got along well with that person. Hence, they maintained a brotherly distance. They had to win the Asian Cup, regardless of where their captain was. Most importantly, after this competition, no one knew where they would go in the future. Hence, if they didn't win the championship, they wouldn't be able to stand in that position with the red flag and the person they liked the most. Many people would say that they were just playing games. You're tuning in to the Echoes of the Heart YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.